2 weeks ago, something unexpected happened. So strange, and so quietly intense, it shook something loose in me. It started with my tenant walking into my room while I was changing, but it ended in a way I still can't explain. I need to tell this story because even now, I don't know what to make of it. So let me take you back to where it all started. The house was quiet, except for the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. I'd grown used to the silence, how it wrapped around me like a worn-in blanket. My wife, Alice, was working late again. Lately, that had become the norm. I told myself I didn't mind, that I liked the solitude, but the truth was messier than that. I stood shirtless in front of my wardrobe, reaching for a clean shirt. Then I heard it, a soft rustling behind me. My breath caught. I turned around. Standing in the doorway was him, Dylan. He'd been renting the spare room for a few months now. His expression froze. His eyes flicked from my face to my half-dressed chest, then back again. Time stretched between us, unbearably long. "Dylan?" I breathed, my voice barely audible. "What are you doing?" His Adam's apple bobbed. I didn't mean to. I thought you were downstairs," he stammered, voice thick with something I couldn't quite name. I should have been annoyed, should have told him to get out, but I didn't. Something in his gaze held me in place. Something cautious, maybe even curious. He didn't move, and I didn't either. "You should go," I finally said, but it came out softer than I intended. Dylan hesitated, then nodded. He stepped back and quietly closed the door. The latch clicked into place, but I stood there, unmoving, heart pounding against my ribs like a warning. I let out a shaky breath, hand against my chest. What had just happened? And why did it leave my skin tingling? Not with embarrassment, but something far more dangerous. The rest of the evening passed in a haze. Folding laundry, cleaning up the kitchen, brushing my teeth. All of it felt hollow. My mind wouldn't let go of the moment in my bedroom. The way he'd looked at me, it wasn't just surprise. No, it was something else entirely. Later that night, I came downstairs. The scent of fresh coffee drifted from the kitchen. Dylan stood at the counter, absent-mindedly stirring a spoon in his mug. He looked up as I entered, his eyes lingering a little too long before turning away. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. His voice was casual, but the tension beneath it was unmistakable. I shook my head, heading to the fridge for a bottle of water. "No, just restless." Silence settled between us, thick. He was close enough to feel even from across the room. I knew I should say something, acknowledge what happened, set boundaries, but no words came. He cleared his throat, setting down the mug. "About earlier," he began, then trailed off. My fingers tightened around the bottle. "It was just an accident," I said quickly. I forced a smile. "Let's forget it." He studied me for a long moment, unreadable, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, of course." But as he turned to leave, I knew we were both lying. And when I climbed into bed later, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted not by what had happened, but by how it had made me feel. The logical part of me said I was being ridiculous, just a harmless mistake. But my body betrayed me. I felt a hum beneath my skin I hadn't felt in years. Days passed. I tried to keep my distance, but it felt unnatural, forced. Dylan was always there, quiet, polite, always in the background. And yet, I'd catch him watching me, his gaze unreadable. And every time I did, a jolt went through me, something electric. Then, it happened again. I had just stepped out of the shower, a towel wrapped loosely around me. Steam clung to my skin, the warmth of the water still radiating through me. I took 2 steps into my room, and the door creaked open. It was Dylan. He froze the moment he saw me, like he'd walked into a dream he hadn't meant to summon. My breath hitched. Neither of us moved. "Oh God, I'm sorry," he began, his voice hoarse, but my hand lifted before I could stop it. "Wait." He stopped instantly. His chest rose and fell in uneven breaths, and my fingers just slightly trembled. around the towel, but I didn't move to cover myself further. The weight of unspoken words hung between us, the air thick, charged. "Why are you here, Dylan?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He looked at me, really looked. Something raw flickered behind his eyes. I don't know," he said quietly. But we both knew that wasn't true. I swallowed hard, my pulse roaring in my ears. This was reckless, dangerous, and yet, in that moment, standing in the soft glow of the bedside lamp, I felt more alive than I had in years. "You should go," I said, but the words lacked strength, just a whisper against the storm rising between us. Dylan took a slow step forward. "Do you want me to?" he asked. His voice was low, steady, like he already knew the answer. I should have said yes, should have turned away, but instead I stayed still, watching, waiting, as if some unspoken truth had settled between us like a spark aching to ignite. He stepped closer. The air grew heavier. Our breathing shallow, matched, like we were on the edge of something neither of us could name. Dylan hesitated. His fingers twitched slightly at his sides, waiting for me to be the one to break it. But I didn't. I let the silence stretch, let the tension grow until it nearly swallowed the room. Then he exhaled, shaky. His hand reached toward the doorknob. "I should go," he murmured. But he didn't move. He lingered just a second longer. And I nodded, even though some part of me screamed for him to stay. He looked at me one last time, his hand still resting on the knob, his eyes full of hesitation, the same hesitation tearing at my own chest. And then he slipped out, leaving me with the weight of everything that had almost happened. I stood there, breath coming in short, uneven bursts. The towel wrapped around me felt suddenly too warm, too heavy. My skin burned. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady my heartbeat, but it was no use. That moment, his presence, the way his gaze had locked onto mine, it had stirred something deep inside me, something I wasn't ready to name. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Not even close. I was right. I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers gripping the towel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. What had just happened? What almost happened? It was dangerous. I needed to clear my head, to shake off whatever this was before it spiraled further out of control. I got dressed quickly, a loose t-shirt and pajama shorts, then padded downstairs. The kitchen was quiet. The only light came from the soft green glow of the microwave clock. I filled a glass of water and took slow, measured sips, hoping the coolness would dull the heat still lingering under my skin. But then, footsteps. I froze, and Dylan appeared at the entrance to the kitchen. He was shirtless, wearing only a pair of sweatpants that clung low on his hips. His hair tousled, like he'd run his hands through it too many times. He paused when he saw me, then stepped forward, slow, deliberate. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. His voice was lower than usual, rough, intimate. I set my glass down. "No, just thinking." He leaned against the counter, arms folded over his chest. "About what?" I hesitated. There were safer answers, easier ones, but none of them would have been honest. Finally, I met his gaze. "About earlier." Dylan's jaw tightened. His fingers flexed against his arm. He let out a slow breath, eyes never leaving mine. "Me too." The air shifted, thickened. The silence between us stretched tight, ready to snap. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too close. I could hear the fridge humming, the clock ticking above the stove. But all of it was drowned out by the sound of my own heartbeat. I should have defused it, said something neutral, but I didn't. I stayed where I was, watching him, as he pushed off the counter and took one slow step toward me. His presence overwhelmed the space between us. His warmth, his nearness. My breath caught. He reached out. His fingers brushed my arm, just barely, but the contact sent a shiver down my spine. "I don't know what this is," he whispered. Neither did I, but the moment he touched me, something inside shifted, and I knew there was no going back. His hand lingered a second longer, then fell away, but he didn't move. He stayed there, close, his breath shallow, his eyes flickering between my lips and my eyes. I should have told him to leave, but I didn't. I stood frozen, my pulse hammering in my ears. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair like he needed to ground himself. I should go, he said, but there was no weight behind the words, no intention. I swallowed hard, my voice barely audible. Then why aren't you? His jaw tensed. Because I don't want to. The words sent a tremor through me. I clutched the counter, steadying myself. I should have ended it, cut the moment off before it swallowed us whole. But instead, he moved closer. His fingers brushed my arm again. A gentle, deliberate touch, enough to light a fuse. Tell me to leave, he whispered, a plea wrapped in quiet desperation. I opened my mouth, to push him away, to pull him in. I didn't know, but no words came. And then he leaned in. It was slow, hesitant, like he expected me to stop him. But I didn't. His lips brushed mine, feather light, barely there. And yet, it was enough. His warmth, his breath, everything about him was intoxicating. And despite every rational thought screaming at me to pull away, I stayed. He didn't move either. His forehead rested against mine. His hands trembled at his sides, like he was holding something back. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. Dylan swallowed. Do you want me to stop? It was my moment, my last chance to end it, to pull the final thread holding us apart. But I didn't say yes. I closed the distance between us. Our lips met, tentative at first, cautious. Both of us testing the fragile boundary we were about to cross. His breath was warm, his lips soft, but certain. A quiet, shaky exhale escaped me as he deepened the kiss, just slightly. His hands found my waist, fingers brushing with hesitation. A slow, dangerous fire spread through me. Every part of me knew this was a line, one we couldn't uncross. But the way he touched me, the way he kissed me, like he'd been waiting just as long as I had, made stopping feel impossible. Dylan's hand moved up, fingertips grazing my jaw, tilting my face toward him. He deepened the kiss again, still slow, still careful. A quiet sound slipped out of me, a sound I didn't mean to make. It betrayed everything, how much I'd needed this, how starved I'd been to feel something real. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just loneliness, not just temptation. This was desire, inevitable. Dylan pulled back just barely. Our foreheads nearly touched, our breath tangled in the space between us. His eyes were dark, clouded with something unreadable. Longing, fear, restraint. We can't, I whispered, voice trembling. I know, he murmured. His thumb ghosted across my cheek. He let it linger a second longer, then stepped back, ran a hand through his hair like he needed to shake it off. I think I should go, he said, but it sounded more like a question than a decision. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I wanted him to leave. He lingered a second longer, then turned and walked into the dim hallway, disappearing into the dark. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. My hands gripped the edge of the counter. My whole body trembled, not from fear, but from whatever had just passed between us. Even as he left, I could still feel him, his presence lingering, his touch burning faintly across my skin. I steadied myself. I had been playing with fire, and I knew this wasn't over, not even close. And the scariest part? I didn't know if I wanted it to stop. I told myself I needed to get a grip, to remember my boundaries. I was the adult here. I had a life, commitment. Even if Alice and I had grown distant, even if our marriage had become a quiet routine, that didn't give me the right to drift toward something reckless. But logic didn't help me sleep that night. I tossed and turned, mind spinning with every moment from the kitchen, every glance, every breath, every unspoken word. The more I tried to forget, the more it replayed. When I finally fell asleep, my dreams were restless. Hazy flashes of Dylan's eyes, the way he had looked at me, like I was something he couldn't turn away from. I knew it wasn't over. This was just the beginning. And I was right, because the craziest part hadn't even happened yet. The next morning, I woke up drained. The sunlight streaming through the window felt too bright. The birds outside, too cheerful. I went through my routine on autopilot, hoping the simple rhythm of the day would clear my head. When I got to the kitchen, Dylan was already there, sitting at the table, absently stirring his coffee. He looked up. For a second, neither of us spoke. The air still thick with everything left unsaid. "Morning," he finally said, his voice rough. "Morning?" I echoed, forcing calm into my tone. I moved to pour myself coffee, keeping my back to him a little longer than I needed to, trying to gather myself, trying to pretend that everything was fine. But when I turned back, his eyes were on me, watching, reading, as if he was waiting for me to say something, to name what had passed between us. But I couldn't, so I sat down slowly, sipped my coffee like nothing had changed. He leaned back in his seat, exhaled. "So," he said, "are we going to talk about it?" I froze, just for a second, then carefully set my cup down. "Talk about what?" He tilted his head, eyebrows raised. "You know what?" I let out a small, nervous laugh. "Dylan, it was nothing. We were tired. It was just a weird moment." He didn't look convinced. His fingers tapped lightly on the table. His brow furrowed. "That's not what it felt like." I swallowed hard, my grip tightening around the mug. He was right. Of course he was right. But admitting it felt dangerous. Too final. Too irreversible. "We can't do this," I said softly. Dylan studied me for a long time, then nodded slowly. "I know." Silence stretched between us again. Thick, heavy. I wanted to believe that was the end of it, that we had both come to our senses, that it was over. But the way he looked at me, the slight twitch in his fingers against the table, told me the truth neither of us wanted to say out loud. It wasn't over. Just as I was about to get up and escape the conversation, the sound of the front door unlocking made me jump. My heart pounded. I turned toward the sound. Alice was home. Dylan's posture stiffened, but he masked it quickly, bringing his coffee to his lips like nothing had happened. I did the same, forced myself to relax just as my wife stepped into the kitchen. "Hey!" Alice greeted, setting her briefcase down near the door. She pressed a quick, distracted kiss to my cheek, before heading straight for the coffee pot. "Didn't expect to be home this early," she said. "Meeting got canceled." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral, but my hands trembled under the table. The irony wasn't lost on me. Alice, distant, emotionally absent for months, was suddenly here, right when everything inside me was starting to unravel. She sat down at the table. Dylan glanced at me, his eyes unreadable, but the weight of everything unsaid pressed between us. This wasn't over. Not even close. The rest of the morning was agonizing. I made small talk with Alice, nodding in the right places, pretending to care about her stories from work. But my mind was stuck, caught in the quiet gravity of the last 24 hours. Dylan barely spoke. He excused himself after finishing his coffee, mumbling something about needing to get out for a bit. I watched him go, a knot forming deep in my stomach. The rest of the day passed in slow motion. I went through the motions, cooking, cleaning, answering emails, as if routine could erase what had happened. But it didn't. That evening, as I climbed into bed, I told myself things would be different tomorrow, that I'd create distance, draw a line, put an end to this. But some part of me already knew. It was too late. The night was long, restless. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Dylan's gaze on me, his voice in the kitchen, the way he looked at me like I was something more than I'd allowed myself to be. I told myself I was imagining it, but I knew better, and when I finally drifted off, it didn't last. A faint sound outside my bedroom door jolted me awake. My body tensed, still and silent. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. I glanced at the clock. Almost midnight. A part of me already knew who it was. Then, a gentle knock. I hesitated only a second, then slid out of bed. The hardwood was cold beneath my feet. As I crossed the room, my fingers hovered over the doorknob. Every rational part of me screamed, "Turn around. Walk away. Pretend this isn't happening." But I didn't. I opened the door just a crack. And there he was, Dylan, standing in the hallway. Plain t-shirt, sweatpants, hair tousled like he'd been tossing in bed. Unable to sleep. Our eyes met. Neither of us spoke. Then softly, "I couldn't stop thinking about it," he said. I gripped the edge of the door, unsure whether to open it wider or close it completely. My throat was dry. "Dylan, I know," he cut in, his voice low, almost pained. "I know we shouldn't, but that doesn't make it go away." He stepped closer, so close I could feel the warmth radiating off him. The air between us turned thick, heavy. "This isn't right," I said quietly. "Then tell me to leave." His words hung there. A challenge, a plea, a warning. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out, because I didn't want him to leave. He must have seen it in my face. His jaw tightened. His hand twitched at his side, like he was holding something back. "Say the word," he whispered, "and I'll go." I should have closed the door. Instead, I stepped back, just enough. Dylan didn't hesitate. He stepped inside, closed the door with a soft click behind him. The room felt smaller instantly, like the air itself was closing in. He stood closer than ever before. "I don't know how to stop this," he admitted. Neither did I. I didn't know when it started, or why, but it had taken root, this pull, this tension. And now, in the soft glow of my bedside lamp, I knew one thing: we had already crossed the line. The silence buzzed between us. He reached out, fingers grazing my arm. A feather-light touch. I should have pulled away, but I didn't. His hand moved higher, over my shoulder, then stopped just beneath my jaw. I inhaled sharply. My pulse hammered in my ears. His eyes searched mine, for hesitation, for fear. But there wasn't any. Slowly he leaned in, his breath warm against my cheek. My eyelids fluttered, my resolve slipping. And this time, nothing stopped us. His lips met mine, slow, hesitant, like he was testing how much of me was willing to fall. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment, I almost pulled away. But Dylan moved, just enough to deepen the kiss. And with that, my thoughts unraveled. His hand slid up, fingertips grazing my jaw again, gently tilting my face toward him. It was careful, almost reverent, but the heat beneath it was undeniable. I exhaled. His lips were warm against mine, and my hands, trembling, found their way to his chest. I could feel his heartbeat, steady, strong, beneath my palms. A quiet sound escaped me. Not quite surrender, but something deeper. Something I didn't have words for. Dylan took it as permission. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer, his warmth seeping into my skin like sunlight. My body moved before my mind could catch up, pressing into him, fitting against him, like it had always known how. It had been so long since anyone had held me like this, carefully, like I was something fragile, something he didn't want to break, but couldn't let go of. I tilted my head slightly, letting the kiss deepen, letting myself get lost in it. His hands explored gently, slowly, fingertips grazing down my back, resting just above my waist. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't careless. It was reverent and dangerously honest. A fire lit beneath my skin, waking up places I'd long ignored. "Are you sure?" Dylan's voice was barely above a whisper, his breath shaky, his hands still resting where they were, waiting for my answer. I should have walked away. I should have ended it right then. But instead, I nodded. Dylan exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Then he kissed me again. Not careful this time, but sure, like he couldn't hold it in any longer. And maybe I couldn't either. In that moment, I felt untethered, weightless. Everything else, the world outside, my choices, my mistakes, fell away. For the first time in a long time, I let myself feel, and I didn't want it to end. His fingertips skimmed lower. My breath caught. My fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt. He wasn't rough. He wasn't in a hurry. He was memorizing me, every reaction, every inch, every unspoken word. Time blurred. Minutes, hours, maybe only seconds. Eventually, we collapsed into each other, tangled and breathless, hearts pounding in rhythm. My fingers trembled as they traced the line of his shoulder, my thoughts trying to catch up to what my body already knew. This was real. It had happened. "This is wrong," I whispered, the words cracking as they left me. Dylan's forehead pressed gently against mine, his hands still holding me like he didn't want to let go. "I know," he said, voice low and unsteady, but neither of us moved, because neither of us wanted to. For a moment, the world outside that room didn't exist. There was only this, the fire we had lit together, unstoppable, undeniable, and we didn't try to put it out. What happened next? I won't describe, not all of it, but we crossed a line, fully, irrevocably, and afterward, the silence settled around us like dust, heavy, still. Dylan was the first to speak. "Are you okay?" he asked. I nodded, still catching my breath. "I'm fine," I whispered. Then reality crept back in. This isn't good. It's not right." His eyes searched mine, and I saw it, the disappointment, but also the understanding. He nodded. "Yeah, you're right." He gathered his things slowly, reluctantly. Before he left, he paused at the door, eyes lingering on me, like he wanted to say more. Maybe ask to stay. Maybe say sorry. Maybe just stay in this moment a little longer. But I couldn't give him anything. Not reassurance. Not regret. Not clarity. I turned away, pulling the covers tighter around me, as if they could shield me from what we had just done. My body still ached from his touch. My skin still remembered his hands. But my mind was already fast-forwarding, to the fallout, to what would come next. I heard the door creak open quietly, then his soft footsteps retreating down the hallway. I didn't stop him. The silence that followed felt heavier than before, like the air itself had changed. The sheets beneath me were still warm, and his scent lingered faintly in the room. I should have felt shame, or guilt, or something to break the spell. But all I felt was emptiness, a hollow ache in the space he'd left behind. I curled into myself. I shut tight, willing sleep to come. Didn't. Every time I closed my eyes, he was there, in my mind, in my skin, in the way my breath caught when I thought of him. What was I doing? The morning came too soon, dragging me into its light before I was ready. I forced myself out of bed, each step heavy with exhaustion. I showered, dressed, moved through my routine like a ghost. And downstairs, the scent of coffee waited, along with the weight of everything I still couldn't say. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, but it did little to clear the haze still clouding my mind. Dylan was already there. He sat quietly at the kitchen table, his fingers curled around a steaming mug, eyes fixed on the surface like he was trying to make sense of something that couldn't be undone. When he looked up, our eyes met, and just for a second, everything from the night before came rushing back, like a wave I wasn't ready for. I turned away too quickly, focusing on the cabinets, on the glass I pulled down with hands that trembled more than I cared to admit. I poured myself some water, slow, steady, or at least I tried. "Morning," Dylan said softly, his voice careful. I swallowed hard and gave a short nod. "Morning." The air between us felt charged, tense, heavy with everything we weren't saying. I could feel him watching me as I took slow sips of my drink, both hands wrapped tightly around the glass, as if it were the only thing anchoring me to the moment. "We should talk," he said suddenly. I placed the glass down, inhaled deeply, and turned to face him. "About what?" He gave me a knowing look. "You know what." I did, but that didn't mean I was ready to face it. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. "Look, last night, It was a mistake. I cut in. Too fast. Too sharp. He frowned. His jaw clenched. Is that what you really think? I hesitated. My chest tightened. Was it a mistake? Or was it something else entirely? Something I still didn't know how to name? I opened my mouth to respond, but I didn't get the chance. The sound of the front door unlocking froze me in place. Alice. Dylan stiffened. My breath caught. Alice walked into the kitchen, her expression tired. She dropped her keys on the counter without a glance, heading straight for the coffee pot like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Long night? I asked, forcing my voice to sound even. She rubbed her temple and let out a low groan. Yeah, barely got any sleep. Too much going on at the office. She didn't notice the tension in the room. Didn't notice the way Dylan sat so still he barely seemed to breathe, or the way my hands clutched the edge of the counter like it might keep me upright. Dylan pushed back his chair suddenly, standing up. I've gotta go, he muttered, already halfway down the hallway. Alice glanced up. Going somewhere? He paused, barely, shook his head. Just need some air. Then he was gone. Just like that. I stared after him, my chest heavy, my thoughts a tangled mess. Alice finally looked at me, brow creased. You okay? I forced a small smile, one I hoped didn't look as fragile as it felt. Yeah, of course. She nodded, taking a long sip of her coffee. We should go out tonight, she said. It's been a while since we had dinner together. Just the two of us. I blinked, caught off guard. Dinner? She shrugged. Yeah, why not? Let's try to reconnect a little. My stomach twisted. Was this a second chance? A lifeline before everything spiraled completely out of control? I'd like that, I said quietly. But even as the words left my mouth, I couldn't shake the weight in my chest. The truth I wasn't saying. Felt like it was already too late. Everything was already different. And that's why I'm telling you this. Because I still don't know what to make of it all. I'm stuck between two truths. What I had, and what I suddenly can't stop thinking about. So now I'm asking you, what would you do? What do you make of this? Let me know, because I don't know how to feel anymore.